ARMS is one of the most bizarre new things Nintendo has tried out in recent memory. Nintendo usually experiments with some of their lesser known IPs or just flat out new ones at the start of their consoles. For example, on the 3DS we had the Steel Diver franchise begin and 3 people were super excited. They also returned to Pilotwings, which 4 people were super excited. I actually didn't mind Pilotwings Resort. It's basically a game where you use different vehicles and complete different objectives whilst flying around Wuhu Island. This island was originally used in Wii Sports Resort, but made appearances in other games like Mario Kart 7 and Smash Bros. The game was good. Not great. You could fly around and do the missions, but there wasn't really much more than maybe 2 hours of content here. The foundation for a good game was there, the gameplay was good, but nothing else really. This felt like a side mode, which the whole game was actually based on, a side mode from Wii Sports Resort. They experiment around launches all the time. When the GameCube launched, it came out with Luigi's Mansion, a weird Mario spin-off about Luigi hunting ghosts. It's a great game, but it does raise the question, should they have just released a normal Mario platformer in its place, you know, for the sake of the system? The answer is yes, because the GameCube was a giant-ass flop. So when the Nintendo Switch January presentation aired, we saw 2 brand new games, ARMS and 1-2-Switch. 1-2-Switch was dog shit, so let's talk about ARMS. I'm just kidding. We can talk about 1-2-Switch for just like a sentence, because that's all there's really to talk about. This game sucked. Well, we might go for the world record here. We might talk about 1-2-Switch for longer than a sentence. It was a minigame compilation full of weird gimmicks with the Joy-Con controllers. It definitely worked and there was some cool feelings in the Joy-Con, but this was a game you had to buy for like real money. And not like a cool eShop title either. This game was $60 here. Like, what the hell? There was nothing to this game. At first I thought it was going to be like the Wii Sports equivalent, but this game is dog ass. But they also announced ARMS, yay! And the first reveal was kinda lame. It's just super unsatisfying to even watch this trailer. Some people have pointed out it wasn't enjoyable to watch because the characters barely hit each other. There was an abundance of dodging, but nothing really gets achieved outside of 1 or 2 functioning attacks, which I thought was really interesting. Shows that there's a ton of different ways to advertise your game and that some things that I wouldn't even consider can have an effect. The core gameplay of ARMS was shown, and it's essentially a 3D fighting game where you attack players with extendable arms. Your movement is in 3D space, dodging and blocking are all crucial to the gameplay, but the main gimmick would be the arms, which extend heavily across the stage to the opponents. My initial impressions were, it looked good, not great, the name was stupid. We'd get more updates over time. The April 2017 Direct showcased more of the core gameplay, showing different arms you can actually set, which changes how you play in a fight. When you begin a round, you choose an arm, which really is just the glove on your arm, and for that round, that's the arm that you're using on that arm. It's a lot of arms. Are you still following? You can use 2 of the same type, or mix and match. You can change your arm after every round, and usually after a couple wins, whether it be 1, 2, or 5, you'll eventually win the match and move on to the next player or battle. It looked good, the name was stupid. We got an ARMS Direct in May, kind of going over the lore of the game, which is honestly kind of irrelevant to the game itself, similar to Splatoon. I appreciate it's here, but if you're not going to do anything with it in the main campaign mode about this, I don't care.
For some reason, none of these superstar fighters can remember the moment they first realized they had the ARMS ability. They just woke up one morning and bam, extendable arms.
Yeah, f*** that. The Direct really got me excited. It showcased that there'd be even more modes to play on outside of the core fighting, showing things like volleyball. You might be saying, but Sam, volleyball isn't even a fun sport. And I'd say, you're watching an ARMS video, do you like any sport? And you'd probably say, no, not particularly, and I'd say, well then, there you go. What the point was I making? Oh yeah, volleyball and ARMS, yeah that was cool. They showed off a bunch of stuff, the online matchmaking system, more of the gameplay, Splatoon stuff was in the last 3 minutes because that was a smart decision. But the biggest announcement was the ARMS Global Test Punch, which allowed you to play ARMS before launch and test the online of the game. This was pretty rad. I still kept my little icon of this on my Switch and that's completely useless. And yes, this detail is my date opener, and no, it does not work. The test punch was amazing, it really got me excited to play ARMS. My only issue was that the game was a little repetitious, but the final game wouldn't be like that, right? What do you think? Look at the title. I'm sorry for getting angry at you guys, you just deserve it. So ARMS came out June 16, 2017, and what a bad release date. It got completely drowned out by E3, a similar situation to Sushi Striker. Thinking about it, why do they do this? So ARMS is in my hands. In my arms. There's a joke there somewhere, but I can't think of it, so that's the ending of that. But I should point out something before I discuss the game and look at it. There is more in this game now than at launch. Nintendo adds a bunch of updates to their games, usually to unfinished ones, which this game kinda was. So at launch, there was way less stages, characters, whatever. That's a whole other issue about Nintendo games that I hate, but the purpose of this video, I'm just looking at what's in the game now if you were to pop it in today. That being said, there's no paid DLC for this game, so if you buy the game today, you get all the content that's been added from the very launch until the game stopped being supported around the 5th of April 2019. When you boot the game up for the very first time, you're forced into a tutorial. I'd usually say this should be optional, but if you're starting a new profile, you're probably a little bit rusty anyway, and this game has tons of mechanics I always forget, so you can immediately choose to do the tutorial on 1 player or in 2 players. Obviously, I picked 2 players because I'm a sociable beast, and I always have someone to play with. Moving on. I immediately picked Springman because I always like playing as the default character for the first experience. It's like playing as Mario the first time you play Mario Kart. You have to. The tutorial quickly shows you some of the movement basics, and you get a yay whenever you do something right. It introduces you to movement, different ways to attack and grab, the fact that you can change your arms between matches, and also how to activate your special attack. Every character has a flurry special attack when they blast their arms towards the other player. They're pretty much the same across all the characters, they're just kind of like a spamish, like a punching attack, but it can be easily blocked with a simple block from the other player. Actually, a lot of the game is revolved around timing, knowing when to jump, punch, and dodge. It's all about the timing. And it's very satisfying to fight, and especially to win. You're thrown into a practice match after this, and afterwards, world's your oyster. You can choose from all of this craziness, and there's seemingly quite a lot here, so let's go through it. First, we have the Grand Prix, where you'll take on a total of 10 fights in a row in order to face the final boss, Max Brass. There's 7 difficulties, and the harder ones are actually really tricky. This is not a good adventure mode. I'd actually argue it's flat out bad. You do 10 fights in a row, and 10 fights is quite a lot. This Springman campaign took me 23 minutes, that's just too long. There's a little bit of lore chucked in, but for the most part, it's just a map system where you move on to the next opponent. There's some cool things, the different difficulties make you fight a different final boss. On the first 5 difficulties, you'll fight Max Brass at the end. However, on the stronger 2 difficulties, you'll have to fight Dr. Coil. And following these battles, on the first 3 difficulties, you're finished. On difficulties 4 to 5 intensity, you'll verse Max Brass with a headlock on his head. Headlock is a pretty fun boss. He clings onto the head of a fighter and has a total of 6 arms and an extremely strong special attack. On intensity 6 to 7, you verse Dr. Coil with a headlock head. I will never play this in my life because it's just way too hard and I'm so bad at this game. The campaigns typically have 2 mini-games chucked in, which we'll cover in a second, but it's just too much normal fighting and it's just super repetitive and annoying. And this is what I mean when I say ARMS was good, but it was almost great. Why was this campaign so, like, the same thing over and over again? Don't get me wrong, I think it's fine once. But on my main account, I haven't even done this with every character, and I love 100%ing stuff as much as I can. I did every single Smash Bros. Ultimate Classic Mode campaign, all of them, and it's only just an okay mode, and that I was willing to do. This isn't. It's really not good enough. Going through the second time for this video, oh my god, it was just like going through the motions. It was so just uninteresting, and that shouldn't happen the second time through. So how would I fix this? Well, utilize the bonus modes. Have maybe 3 standard fights, including the final boss, and then use all the side modes. It doesn't need to be 10 matches long, maybe 3 fights and 3 bonus games, and the bonus games are cycled through and aren't always the same thing in every campaign, making each campaign feel unique. And if it's just 6 matches, that means it's not too long, like you can get through it in like 12 minutes. Oh Sam, it's a fighting game, there needs to be more normal fighting to make up the majority of the campaign. Oh really? So why does the multiplayer make you do all the bonus games like all the time? This is not just a standard fighter, you're meant to play all the modes in rotation. So the story mode shouldn't be this basic, it should be rotating them. Also, it's so weird because it would have been like such an easy fix. Just make it smaller and like not as repetitive. Did the testers actually go through every campaign and were like, this is awesome? It's just so long and uninteresting. Of course, it would have been a better mode with more modes to actually choose from as well. There shouldn't just be a couple mini games, there should be tons, and then they can just throw in whichever ones, but you know, one thing at a time. And this is where you'll be spending most of your time in offline play, whether it be with friends like me, since I have so many, or by yourself with computers, not like me, but maybe close your eyes while I do this segment. There's a bunch of different options to go through, so let's go through each of them and I'll give my thoughts. First up is Fight, which, like, you know, it's obviously good. It's just normal battling with the arms cast. You can select your fighter, the fighter for the computer or player 2, and also choose whatever stage you want. Pretty regular stuff, it functions well, it's pretty quick to jump into matches, and yeah, it's just fun, no complaints here. Next up we have Team Fight. This is fine. I think it's fun to play Lee, but it's definitely not competitive. There's way too much nonsense happening here. A grab can make your teammate fly away so then you take damage from that attack. Two people can gang up on one person and there's not really anything you can do at that point. It's super stupid. It's fun, but the core fighting in this game is best with only you and one other person. It's just a bit ridiculous otherwise. I feel like this easily could have been improved on by having more teammate-based mechanics, moves that help heal your teammates for example, maybe timed attacks that make you and your friend combine into a combo, not just the usual gameplay just with more people, but something that actually warrants having more players. This mode is basically just cluttering up a fight. It's especially annoying because once your teammate dies, whew, you're screwed. You're left in the fight against two and you cannot win. You just get grabbed and special, there's just nothing you can do. The teams are tethered together, which is fine, I think that's a good idea, but again, the grab should just fling you with your partner, not outright hurt you. Next up, we have the minigame modes. Volleyball is first. You use the extendable arms to play a ridiculous match of volleyball. This game is so fun. You can spike the ball by using the grab feature. Admittedly, this mode turns into a spamathon for me and my mates, but it usually results in so much yelling, I don't even care. It's so much fun. Literally no complaints with this mode. Also, this can be played as a 1v1 or a 2v2, and unlike the normal fighting, I think this game is so much more fun as a team. You can easily screw up for your team, and it always results in a lot of hectic, bizarre games, and it's always so funny. Hoops is next, which can only be played as a 1v1 and revolves around you either attacking offensively to make the character bounce off the arena and into the hoop, or just grabbing and dunking them. 90% of this game is dunking. It is so satisfying and stupid. This mode is so fun to play with someone you know, however my only complaint is the time limit. There's a timer ticking down the whole match and I feel like it just makes one player give up after a while. The actual grabbing takes a while to do, and if you're that many points behind and you know the time is running out, sometimes just go, well, I'm not winning this one. If there was no time limit and you were down 8-2, you could still hypothetically catch up and win 8-10. But with the time limit, it's pretty much impossible. You just have to go, well, I'll try again next match. This doesn't outright hurt my fun with the mode, I just wish it was slightly different. And the last of the minigames, and yeah, I said last, is Skill Shot, a game where you try to break the targets on the same board as another player, and you can punch and grab the opponent to temporarily stun them, or you can focus on getting more targets. The targets get you more points, but hitting the opponent actually gives you a few too. It's refreshing after you play a lot of the other stuff because it heavily revolves around moving in a 2D space. It's cool to just focus on moving left and right and firing directly forward, but I do think of this mode as something that's also in the game, but it's never like a selling point. I'm not like, oh, you have to play skill shot mode. That's the end of the mini games, but you also have Headlock Scramble, a mode in which you can grab an item and become the previously named Headlock, sporting 6 arms and the crazy special attack and all. Now, unlike the team battle, I think this mode is actually more fun with multiple people. Since one player is absurdly powerful compared to the others, it's fun to dodge multiple people trying to keep the power to yourself, or maybe your strategy is to not hold onto the head and hope the attention is usually focused on the player with Headlock, so then you have more health deeper into the match. It's a great idea for a game mode and it's super fun. Probably the best game mode, I'd say. Really good. There's 2 modes left under the Versus catalog, but they're exclusively single player. 1 on 100 is first, which revolves around you just fighting a bunch of enemies. 100 exactly. You might be surprised by that number on a 1 versus 100 mode, I know. The mode's okay. I just get bored like halfway through since there's so many enemies and some just suck and some of them are like overly difficult. The CPU balancing is so weird. Arms Test is an interesting mode. You simply just fight character after character and see how long you can last. There are items to replenish your health along the way, and it's fun to see how long you can last. And that's all for Versus mode. There is not enough here. There should be like 20 modes in this game, and I know that number's a bit ridiculous, but genuinely, it needs like 20. See, the gameplay in this game is freaking amazing, right? But it's pretty repetitious. Smash Bros can be repetitious, but there's so many different stages and strategies and items and modes to experiment with that you can keep coming back to it. Here, there's all those things, but the numbers are significantly lower for just every category. There should be a ton of different game modes to play with others. Just spitballing, maybe like a racing mode where you aim at each other's vehicle to slow them down. Or maybe a whack-a-mole game where you just use your extendable arms and play whack-a-mole. There needed to be more because there's maybe a 5-hour session with your mates here and then you've seen the whole game. Here's the thing, it is a blast of 5 hours. It is so much fun, but once you come back, it's the same thing again. And that's why this game died within my friend group at launch, and when we got back into it recently, we've stopped again already. It's so good. What's here is so good, but there's just not enough. Party Match is an online multiplayer mode for this game, and consists of lobbies where you play in the aforementioned 5 modes with either your friends or players from around the world. This is the best online Nintendo has ever made. The actual online setup is terrific, the lobbies are cool and presented well, and they inform you of what's going on in the different matches. It's stylized, so your next match is usually a surprise, and it's cool to see what mode you're gonna get. And the actual online isn't laggy or crap, it's really good. It's weird Nintendo nailed the online for this, and got Mario Kart pretty alright, and then just never tried again? Seriously, the online is so good for this game and it's not mentioned enough. There's one mode here which is exclusive to Party Match, where you and up to 2 other players will fight headlock. It's pretty cool because you can experience fighting him on all these different stages and not having to go through the campaign just to get to him. There's also a ranked match mode where you play competitive matches. This is just the core fighting, none of the mini games or multiple players, it's just 1v1, and it's got a pretty good system where you can search for a player of a similar skill level in the background of playing the campaign or multiplayer. Very cool, I think. There's a training mode where you can learn more advanced techniques, and some of the stuff here I didn't even know after playing since launch, so it's definitely handy to look through. You might find some details you missed. And here's the arms getter, a pretty crucial part of the game. Here you play the skill shot game with just one player. You aim to grab these gifts which give you new arms for your characters. All the fighters only come with 3 customizable arms, however each of the fighters also bring 3 arms with them. So you can unlock the different types of arms for all the different fighters. So you can mix and match the playstyle of the character you like with the arms you like. On the topic of the characters, there's 15, so I'll just briefly run through them. Springman's fun enough. He's a default average character, nothing really weird or crazy about him, but you can reflect back incoming arms and he's pretty easy to pick up and play. Ribbon Girl's a lot of fun. She has multiple jumps, she's a really good defense character. I'd say arguably she's one of the scariest characters to fight against if you know someone who's actually good. She can do a lot of damage and get away really fast. Ninjara is a cool design. I find him a little uninteresting to play as though. His gimmick is that he can disappear when he dodges, meaning it's easier to avoid grabs playing as him compared to the rest of the cast, but it's just kind of boring to play as. Master Mummy's actually a lot of fun. I used to find him pretty uninteresting, but you can do massive damage with him. I don't know, I usually don't like the heavyweight characters in games, and he's super slow and his actual arms move so slowly, but because he's so strong and he just plays so differently to other characters, I really like him. Min Min's alright. I like her design more than her actual gameplay style. She just seems kind of generic with this weird dodge kick. Yeah, that's alright. Mechanica is cool. She gives me Diva from Overwatch vibes. She plays in this robot suit meant to mimic the other fighters because she doesn't randomly wake up with extendable arms. Oh no. She can hover mid-air with the jump button, which is pretty fun, but overall, not one of my mains. Twin Tail is a fan favorite in this game for sure. You can probably figure out why. Her main ability includes slowing the speed of the arms coming at her so she can dodge out of the way of attacks and grabs. She's pretty fun to use, though I have to admit I find her harder to get the hang of than the other characters. I hate Bite and Bark. I love the designs, it's so funny you have this little dog companion in the game, but he's so slow and so meh to use, he just feels so unsatisfying. You can jump off the dog, but he can also get in the way of your attacks, and he can also get in the way of your opponent's attacks, I guess. He's funny, they're a funny character to play as, but they just feel very gimmicky. Kid Cobra, I always forget is even in this game. He's fun enough. He's kind of uninteresting in my opinion, but he can dodge repeatedly, far more than other players, so I mean, that's cool. Yeah, again, I always forget he's here. Helix is cool. I love how he moves, and he has the best design in the game by far. He's so weird looking, I hate how he plays. His attacks kind of blob their way to opponents, which is funny and unique, but not really what you want when competitive fighting. You can stretch him, allowing for cool movement options, which is nice though. He's alright, I just don't love playing as him. That's all for the base fighters, but there were 5 more DLC fighters, the first of which was Max Brass, the initial final boss of the campaign. He's pretty cool. He's a heavyweight fighter, but not as slow as Master Mummy at all. When he's low of health, his arms become pumped up and he'll gain super armor. He's never my go-to, but I do like him, and I think his design is cool. What is Lola Pop? I mean, she's so weird, I love her, but what? She's a clown, and she can also balloon herself and bounce around a bunch. It's so stupid, but it's one of those Nintendo bizarre characters that I think are funny. Definitely one of the cooler ones. Missango, is it Missango? Whenever I see it I think of Missingo, or whatever that Pokemon thing, whatever. He can wear different masks and gain different abilities. I find him a lot of fun, and his design is really cool too. There's Springtron, the game's equivalent to Metal Mario. I feel ashamed to say I love him. He has a special attack that disables the other player's arms temporarily if they had them fully extended, which is so funny. I like playing as him, but as a character, obviously, he's a bit boring. Finally, we have Dr. Coil. She's a mad scientist girl who can fly around, and she's pretty threatening. I like her design a lot, and she came with some really cool songs. but overall my favourites would be Springtron, Ribbon Girl, Lollipop, and Missango. But I like going random and playing as a variety of the different fighters anyway. There's no one I'm like, why did I get this? I think they're all like fine in their own way. I think in total the character roster is actually fine. There's enough variety here to have fun and to find the character for you. Unlike game modes, which I think were too sparse, there's definitely enough here to find a character you like. But at launch it was an issue. The current 15 is fine, totally good. At launch, it was the first 10, not good enough, honestly. The character roster is the size of an N64 character roster. Smash Bros. Melee had more than double that on the GameCube. You might argue 15 isn't even enough, which is a fine opinion to have, but I find them all unique and weird enough to where I think it's totally acceptable for a first entry to have 15, but again, 10 wasn't, and held the game back at launch, and that stumble definitely stopped the game from flourishing. And that's like the main issue with this game. Every time I compliment it, I feel like I have to go, well yeah, that's all good, but also blah blah blah. The story, Grand Prix, is bad. It could and should have been way better. The mode lineup is great. What's here is so good, it's not enough. 5 modes to play with friends, are you kidding? I guess you could argue there's 6 with that versus headlock mode, but either way, there just needs to be way more to do. There's just not enough variety with the modes to play around with too. 3 of those are just fighting still. Like, 3 of them are mini games and those are great, but still, half of them are just the normal core gameplay and there's only 6 in total. Like, that's pretty rough. There just also needed to be more variety. Like, there should have been more items and crazy stage hazards. The only stage hazards I can think of is like this one where you just move around like a roller rink on these like moving platforms. And that's kind of it. Like, there's a stage where the floor will kind of rise, but it does nothing. Your arms just go straight through it as if nothing happens, so it doesn't really change anything. The levels are typically pretty static and stationary, so I mean, I like the stages, but it's also a little bit uneventful. The characters are good, there just wasn't enough at launch, and some argue there still isn't enough. There's just so much good to the actual foundation of this game, but it just isn't objectively great. I'll be honest, I love this game. I haven't played it for an absurdly long time because that's exactly it, there's just not enough to do in the first place, but I really love this game. But just speaking about what's actually here, like, just from an objective standpoint and not just thinking about my opinion, it's just mediocre. It's just a mediocre game. ARMS is good, really good even, it's fun to play multiplayer, but it's just not great. They stumbled way too much and it didn't meet its full potential. The series recently seems to be getting a push by Nintendo. They let the game be played completely for free for a couple of days recently, I guess to drive early sales for something, I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to get sales of the game out now because they don't think they have a big enough lineup for 2020 because of the coronavirus perhaps. That actually could be it. But they also confirmed an ARMS rep for Super Smash Bros. It seems weird to do this now, and not when Ultimate first came out, a year after ARMS, or in the first Fighter Pass, like we're doing it in 2020? The character's gonna come out 3 years after the game came out, and it's pretty irrelevant now, it seems weird. We don't even know who the rep is gonna be. If I had to make a weird guess, I'd say probably Springtron? Springman's already an assist trophy, so it wouldn't be too weird if they just chucked him in. They could just take the assist trophy out. I have no objection with that. But if they're not going to do that, Springtron would be an easy thing to just like slip in because it looks enough like Springman and it still represents the series, so yeah, they could just do that. Character design wise, I hope it's either Missango or Min Min, but I'd be down for almost anyone except Bite and Bark. I imagine the dog would get really annoying in Smash Bros. Like extremely quickly. It's interesting Nintendo's pushing this game though. Perhaps an ARMS 2 is on the way? The game wasn't unsuccessful by any means, and it did pretty well for a new IP despite the horrendous release date and name, and again, unknown nature of this series. I personally hope for bigger and better things for this franchise. In my opinion, the best part of Splatoon 2 was the Octo expansion, so maybe the more stuff they add over time to the ARMS universe will end up being my favourite part of the series too. Let's hope we get to that point. I'm excited to see where this franchise goes, because I think it's so close to being really great. Like, the online is just already so good, it just needs to have more content in the game. A couple more years in the oven without trying to push the game out at launch might have really helped the game and the series out. So overall, the game was good, the stuff in it was good, there just wasn't enough, and the name sucked. Thanks for watching.